Hey, this is Kenneth, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite Raspberry Pi case. So as you can see here, we've got a Raspberry Pi 2 and a Raspberry Pi 3. I had selected this case when I was working on the Raspberry Pi 2, and then they came out with the 3. And they're almost the same, but there's a couple differences between these two models that you need to consider when looking at cases. The two status LEDs here, which is power and activity, those have actually moved to the other side to make room for the Wi-Fi antenna, right? Because here's the Wi-Fi antenna, which comes back to the Wi-Fi transceiver there. So that's one problem. The second problem is that the micro SD card slot is no longer active ejection. Right? It used to be that you could stick a card in there and it had that click to engage it, and then you could just push it and it would stick. It would kick it out again. For some reason, and I'm really kind of disappointed that they did, they've gone with just a passive, you stick it in socket on the Raspberry Pi 3. So to get it out again, you have to actively pull it out, right? Both of those are kind of disadvantages for Raspberry Pi 3 when looking at older cases, right? So this was the case I settled on for the Raspberry Pi 2. This is the FLIRC Raspberry Pi case. And I think it looks pretty good. It's got this black bezel on the top, black back on the bottom here, and then the rest of this is, some sort of aluminum, pressed metal, which is pretty nice, right? And so the case consists of this top section here, the plastic base, and it comes with a bag with 4 screws and then a single adhesive piece of gap filler, right? How the cases go in it, how the Raspberry Pis go in it, is you take the piece of gap filler here. If I can get the bag open. Yeah, there we go. Jesus. There we go. Screws everywhere. So you take your piece of gap filler, you apply it, you peel off the adhesive bit, and you apply it to the heat post there. And the Raspberry Pi then flips upside down like this, so that the 4 screw holes line up with the 4 posts, and the heat post with the gap filler then lines up right on the CPU. Of course, Ethernet, USB, audio, HDMI, micro USB, those all come out on cutouts. And then if you look at how the case bottom goes on, the micro SD slot is available, and it has a little cutout right there for the 2 status LEDs on the Raspberry Pi 2. Remember how the Raspberry Pi 3 has moved those status LEDs to the right side, so they're not going to be exposed. So I'm not so thrilled with this case for the Raspberry Pi 3, and I probably will be looking for newer ones. Another thing that I had missed is they do have a ribbon cable slot here, and so it is conceivable for you to have a ribbon cable plugged into the headers and have them come down out of the case. Unfortunately, all of my ribbon cables, the connector is a little bit wider than the headers, and they interfere with these screw posts, so I can't use that. And it's pretty tight with that heat post there, so I don't even know if you can get very many of the little miniature real-time clock hats to fit on there. So you're pretty limited with your expansion capabilities on this when you're using this case. But for any applications where you've got just a bare Raspberry Pi with no hats, and you just want it to be plugged into your network and working, it's a pretty good case, right? So I've got one of these on my media center on my TV, and I've got a second one that sits in my network rack where I've got it running my local apt proxy and a couple little miscellaneous network services that I can't pull into my network router. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with the FLIRC aluminum case. I haven't tracked the temperatures, but it seems like it's pretty reasonably good at keeping stuff. Not that the Raspberry Pi needs any cooling anyways, so it certainly hasn't made my Raspberry Pis melt down. But I've ordered a couple of them, and they all kind of show up to the same quality, so I'm pretty happy with them. Thanks for watching. Link for this on Amazon is in the description. Talk to you later.